everybody. Happy Wednesday. If you want to run and grab a piece of paper and a pencil so you can write some stuff down, please feel free. I forgot to mention that in my first video. So always remember when you are watching these, if you want to have a notebook or a piece of paper with you so you can write down what I'm talking about or do some examples, please feel free to do so. I also want to let you know that Chapter 8 in our Go Math textbook is a lot of similar topics. So Chapter 8 is very tiny. There's only 5 sections in Chapter 8. So we are going to get through it by the end of next week. Today, we are going to talk about Lesson 8.2, which is page 461 to 466. And on your calendars, it's Wednesday, today, April 29th, and tomorrow, April 30th. Okay, this lesson is called Multiples of Fractions, and this is very similar to what was up on Monday. So just as a small review, multiples, for those of you that might need a little refresher, multiples mean to multiply or to skip count. Again, my little saying is Mrs. Hamilton's favorite candy is M&Ms. So multiples and multiply, M&M. It's just a way to help you remember what to do. Multiples really are your multiplication tables. So over here I have my multiples of 5, which is 5 times 1 is 5, 5 times 2 is 10, 5 times 3 is 15, and 5 times 4 is 20. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, and so on are your multiples of 5. A fraction, all of you know what this is. A fraction is a part over a whole. It's your numerator over your denominator, and right over here I drew a little picture of a square broken into 4 parts, and I colored 1 in, okay? So this fraction would be 1/4 or 1/4. My numerator is the pieces that are colored or that are missing because we ate them. And my denominator is the total number of pieces that I have. So even though I ate one, I still have 4 pieces right here. And that's where you get your denominator from. Okay. The 2 things that I am going to talk about today, these are exactly how you're going to see them in your Go Math lesson. So I did that on purpose. So that way you would have a better understanding of how to do these exact problems that are presented to you in the lesson. So the first examples that we have, it says list the next 4 multiples of the fraction. And again, I'm reminding you that multiples means to multiply. So really, we are multiplying our fraction right here by the next 4 digits. So this guy, 2/3, this really is 1 times 2/3, because 1 times 2/3 does give us 2/3. So our next multiple would be 2 times 2/3. Now remember, and this is just a little refresher, some of you already know this and some of you've already been doing this, but when we multiply a fraction by a whole number, we multiply this whole number by the numerator. So in this case I have 2 times 2, which is 4, and I leave my denominator the same, so it's 4/3. Those steps are right here for those of you that are just learning this for the first time. Those steps are right here for you. And again, you multiply your whole number by your numerator and you leave your denominator the same. It's a very simple process. Okay, so I have 1 times 2/3, 2 times 2/3. Next would be 3 times 2/3. And I have 3 times 2 is 6, and my denominator is 3 because it doesn't change. It always stays the same. Okay, 1 times 2/3, 2 times 2/3, 3 times 2/3. Next I have 4 times 2/3. And again, my numerator and my whole number get multiplied together. So 4 times 2 is 8 over my denominator of 3. And our last multiple of 2/3, if I have 1 times 2/3, 2 times 2/3, 3 times 2/3, 4 times 2/3, next would be, what do you think? Yep, I heard you all the way from over here. It would be 5 times 2/3. And again, your 5, your whole number, and your numerator get multiplied together. So 5 times 2 is 10 over your denominator of 3. Now, I know some of you are screaming at me right now because you are saying, wait, Mrs. Hamilton, all of these are improper fractions, meaning that your numerator is bigger than your denominator, and we can't do that. You guys know that you should turn them into mixed numbers. Don't worry about that here. In this particular lesson, that is not a step that you need to take. So all you need to do is do your multiples. It is okay if these are improper fractions. Do not worry about changing them to mixed numbers. It is a-okay. I'll let you look at that for 1 second. Okay, my bottom example is 1/3. So I'm going to take 1/3. We know because it's 1/3, I'm starting with 1 times 1/3. Why don't you take a few seconds and see if you can do the next 4 multiples of 1/3 following the same steps that we did up here in our first example. I'll give you a few seconds. Okay, so I have 1 times 1/3, which gives me 1/3. My next multiple would be 2 times 1/3. And again, when I multiply a fraction and a whole number, I multiply the whole number, which is this guy right here, and I multiply it with my numerator, which is this guy right here. So 2 times 1 is 2. I leave my denominator the same, so my denominator here is a 3, and I have 2/3. Okay, 1 times 1/3, 2 times 1/3, 3 times 1/3. So 3 times 1 is, yep, it's 3 over my denominator of 3. Now again, this has the same numerator and denominator, so really this fraction equals what, ladies and gentlemen? You're right, it equals 1 whole. Anytime you have a fraction that has the same numerator and denominator, it equals 1 whole. But in this case, you don't have to worry about it. You do not have to change these fractions into whole numbers or to mixed numbers. So I have 1 times 1/3, 2 times 1/3, 3 times 1/3. I'm going to move on with 4 times 1/3. 4 times 1 is 4 over my denominator, which I know because that's the fraction that I started with. I know that this is my denominator right here. 4/3 or 4 over 3. And my last multiple, if I finish with 4 times 1/3, now I'm going to do 5 times 1/3. And again, I multiply my whole number times my numerator. So I'm multiplying this guy and this guy. And if you look, here's your multiplication symbol right there. So you can have 5 times 1 is 5 all over your denominator of 3 because it doesn't ever change. So remember, in this case, it is okay if you leave these fractions improper. It is okay if your numerator, your top number, is bigger than your denominator, your bottom number. It's okay for these types of questions. I'll give you a minute. I'm going to switch sides over here. Okay, this side is a little different. So again, I'm going to tell you that these are the exact instructions that you will see inside of your textbook. And again, I did that on purpose so that way you could see exactly how to do these problems. These instructions say, write the product as a product of a whole number and a unit fraction. This is very similar to what we talked about on Monday. Remember that this word unit fraction, this means that it has, oops, that's yucky looking. This means that it has a numerator of 1, whatever it is. Your numerator in a unit fraction is 1. So if I had 2/3, this really equals 1/3 plus 1/3. These would be your unit fractions because it has a numerator of 1 and 1 plus 1 equals 2 all over your denominator of 3. And remember that our word product right here means what? It absolutely does. It means to multiply. That's your multiplication symbol right there. Okay. So this wants us to write the product as a product of a whole number and a unit fraction. So let's look at this. I have 3 times 4/5. Okay? Well, I know that when I multiply a whole number by a fraction, I multiply my whole number times my numerator. So 3 times 4 is 12. And then my denominator, this guy right here, stays the same. Okay, so when I do that, this is what you get. But if you reread our instructions, it says write the product as a product of a whole number and a unit fraction. I need some unit fractions there, and I need a whole number. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly what we did on Monday. So when we have a fraction like that, and we need a whole number and a unit fraction, if you remember what we did on Monday, we take our numerator here, we pull it all the way over here, it becomes our whole big number. We know we have a product, so we know we need a multiplication symbol. We take our denominator, and it becomes our denominator over here. And then we need a unit fraction, so we know a unit fraction has a numerator of 1. So really, 3 times 4/5 equals 12 times 1/5. This guy right here would be the answer that we would want to see because of the directions, because the directions are telling you that you need a whole number and a unit fraction. This is different than what's over here because these guys just want your multiples. They just want you to multiply and see if you can find the next 4 multiples. Over here, it's specifically asking for a whole number and a unit fraction. And this is exactly what we did on Monday. So if you're still having difficulty with that, please contact your specific teacher, or you can re-watch the YouTube video for Monday and get a little bit of extra practice. but this is your product of a whole number and a unit fraction. So my example at the bottom, 5 times 2/4. Take 1 second and see if you can get the fraction that would go with this. Take 1 second and get as far as the fraction that would go with this. I'm multiplying a whole number times a fraction. My steps are right here, so you can look back at them and see if you can just get the fraction that would go with that guy. Okay, everybody just about done? Okay, when we are multiplying a whole number and a fraction, I know I'm saying it a lot, but it's a great way for you to keep hearing it. I take my whole number, which is my 5, and I multiply it by my numerator, which is 2. So everybody, 5 times 2. This is what I'm multiplying together right here. 5 times 2 is what? Absolutely, it is 10. And then I take my denominator right here, and all I do is put it right underneath it because it stays the same. So your fraction, 5 times 2/4, your product would be 10/4. But remember, that's not what our directions want from us. They want us to have a unit fraction and a whole number. So let's see if we can do that part. So now we go to this, we move to that fraction. And I need a whole big number. What is my whole big number of 10/4? How do I know what my whole big number is? You are right. You take your numerator, which is 10, you fly it all the way over here. It becomes big, and that is your whole number. So that is my whole number. I know it's a product, so I need my multiplication sign. And now I take my denominator, I fly it all the way over here. This is my unit fraction. I know my unit fraction needs a numerator of 1, so all I do is plop a 1 right there. So this answer would be 10 times 1/4. This would be the answer that we would want to see from you because of our directions. Again, our directions are asking us to write that as a whole number and a unit fraction. So this would be the answer we would like to see. This is half your answer. So you're doing a great job if you get here, but you have to take it one step farther, okay? So, and I'll even rewrite this. So this guy becomes your whole number. That is my number symbol, ladies and gentlemen, not a hashtag. That is your number symbol. And this guy, the 4, this becomes your denominator of your unit fraction. Okay, and that's exactly what we talked about on Monday in our YouTube lesson. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, your job for today is to look at your Go Math pages 461, 462, 463, and 464. Ooh, 464 looks pretty awesome. It's a word problem talking about gardening and asking you to solve some questions in that word problem. That's a good one. That's a good thing for spring now that our flowers are starting to grow. I know that those are a lot of pages, but guys, there's not a lot of questions on these pages, okay? I think in total, there's maybe 15 questions, which is super not a lot, so you will be fine. And tomorrow, Thursday, April 30th, your job is to complete 465 and 466. And if you look at your calendars, We skipped over 467, 468. But 469 is the start of lesson 8.3. If you look at your calendars, and I'm going to turn this so you can actually see me now. That's exciting, huh? So for 8.3, we do not have a specific spot for it on your math calendar, and that's okay, okay? We put that on Friday so that way you can use it as a little bit of a review since it's all the things from 8.1 and 8.2. Please do not worry about your mid-chapter checkpoint. If you would like to do it for some extra practice, please feel free. Nobody's going to stop you from getting extra practice. I will see you next Monday for 8.4. And again, if you have any questions or if you are confused, please rewatch the YouTube videos or contact your specific teacher and we would be more than happy to help you out. We didn't have a cat visit today, which was odd. She's probably sleeping in the living room somewhere. But I will be sure to see you next week, and I hope you are enjoying these videos, and hopefully it's a nice weekend for you guys to go outside and maybe play in your backyards. Have a wonderful rest of your week, ladies and gentlemen.